our foundation mission, which is to advance world understanding and peace through the improvement of health, education, and the support of education and the alleviation of poverty. The benefits of the Rotary Foundation are that it provides humanitarian service for our local communities as well as global communities. Projects also help to attract and retain members, and they also help enhance our public image. As we do projects with the Rotary Foundation, we focus particularly on global projects on 6 areas of focus, which include promoting peace, clean water, sanitation and hygiene, saving mothers and children, supporting education, and growing local economies. And I can't see my last chart there, but let me see if I remember what the number 6 is. I guess I need to move this out of the way.
Fighting disease.
Fighting disease, there you go. So I'm gonna be in trouble with half of my slides covered up here, but no, actually I think I've got it on my other screen so I can look over there. So one of the things that's very reassuring when you invest in the Rotary Foundation is that it has a very high rating from one of the, probably the top rated charity assessor, the Charity Navigator. And we have the top rating of 4 stars, and our projects generally are 91% of the funds are spent directly on programs. So we're not wasting a lot of money in administration and other aspects. So in review, when we have our assembly training for the Rotary Foundation, generally we go out to a college and we have probably 7 or 8 different modules that we do at the college over the period of several hours. In this case, we've split it up, and a week ago on April 23rd, we had our session 1 where we focused on the grant certification training. And in that, we covered several subjects. We talked a little bit about disaster response. We talked about district grant certification, global grant certification, global scholars, and the Peace Scholar program as well. So we covered 4 of our topics or modules that we would normally cover in a face-to-face assembly. And we have a great team that did that. And just as a matter of a quick review, since some of you were there, and it wouldn't hurt to spend another couple of minutes looking at that, but for those that weren't, I would just direct you to our district website. And if you go to Rotary5790.org and you look across the top, one of the pull downs is the Rotary Foundation. And if you click on that, you see several choices here. And these are the various modules that we cover for the Rotary Foundation and our training. And so we'll take just a minute and look at a couple of those. District grants, we provide a roadmap. And so if you want to review or just learn something about applying for a district grant, you can come in here and look at the roadmap, and all of the references are over here in the files section over here on the left. We have a similar site page for global grants. It has an application roadmap, and it takes you through the process of how you would go about getting involved in a global grant. And we also have all of the references over here on the left. Same thing on global scholars. And this is one of the greatest deals we have going in our district, is that we are able to offer these fantastic global scholarships. And we've had great success with quite a few wonderful young folks that we have sponsored with Global Scholars. Also with the World Peace Fellowships, we have instructions on how to get involved in that as well. And so these site pages are available to you for reference, and we're updating them. And if you see things that you think would be helpful to add to our site pages, let our subcommittee chairs know, or let me know, and we'll try to upgrade them to make them very useful to you. Okay, so now I'm going to switch, and we're going to session 2, and that's tonight. And so tonight we're going to focus on some additional modules, and we're starting out with myself. I'm the District Rotary Foundation Chair, Paul Lucas. Roger Pascal, our DGE, is here online, and he's free to comment at any time he wants to, and also he'll be available for questions and answers at the end of the evening. We will also cover the polio update and plans. John Bullock is the subcommittee chair for that, and has a lot of experience and has been on a National Immunization Day, among many other trips that he has made with regard to the Rotary Foundation. The Annual Programs Fund, our chairs on that are Janice Kane and Jeannie Secord. And Janice called me a couple of days ago and sounded bad, and told me she was very sick. And she had left me a couple of messages since then. I haven't been able to talk to her directly, but it seems like she's not doing too well, and I wish her well and hope that she does feel better. Jeannie Secord also called in and said that she was not feeling well, and so I don't know if she was able to make it this evening. I hope so, and if she is, she can join in. But if not, I think we can cover the material, but probably not as well as Janice and Jeannie could if they were here. Our last module tonight will be the Endowment Fund and Legacy Opportunities, covered by Sally Hopper and past Rotary Director Don Mavis. And so that's a really great group there, and I'm sure they'll do an absolutely wonderful job. As you can see or tell from the agendas that we had last week and this week, there's a lot to cover, a lot of detailed information, and as long as I've been in this, associated with the foundation, I still learn something new just about every day or every week. So it's a constantly changing environment, but also a very worthwhile and exciting place to be. So this is our group here, our fundraising arm, where the folks that will be talking to you tonight, the grants and scholars. We had last week, Paul Geisel is the head of our Speakers Bureau, and he can help line up speakers for you if you, or you can contact any of our committee chairs and invite them to address a subject for your club. We also have a stewardship group, and that would be Chris Castoro, and who is the district treasurer, the incoming district treasurer, along with Joyce Stanton, involved with the audit committee, and Larry Petrash, the compliance committee. So those folks, the foundation certainly does a really good job, I think, of making sure that we are good stewards, both Rotary International and our own local stewards, ensure that we do things according to the way they are intended. Rotary, our foundation has been in existence for over 100 years now, and no, let's see, not 100 years, or does it? Yeah, I think it is. So they have learned a lot each year in how to be effective and also make sure everything is kosher. So anyway, the funds that we have within the foundation, the Annual Programs Fund, the Endowment Fund, Polio Plus Fund, and a new fund that is relatively new, but has gotten a lot of focus in the last few weeks due to the pandemic, is a Disaster Response Fund. And this is not an official logo here, it's just one that I got out of clips to be representative of what we have here. So just like we did on the grants and scholarships session, we have site pages that has information that can be of very good use to you. Same thing with regard to the funds. And so if you go into Rotary Foundation and you come down here to End Polio Now, you would pull up a site page that is maintained by John Bullock, who will be our next speaker. So let me figure out how to give John Bullock control so that he can take us through the next part. Before I do that, I might just ask our District Governor-elect, Roger Pascal, if he has anything he to make comments later on.
I think we're in good hands, Paul, so you go forward, and we'll keep this short, but if you have any questions, just ask me at the end. Thank you.
Very good. Okay, John, if we can figure out how to give you control, I guess, what do I do?
All right, I can do it.
Okay, and do I do
Oh,
stop
I
sharing?
need whoever's sharing the screen now has to stop sharing.
Okay,
there we
just
go.
Stopped. Okay, you're on.
All right, here we go. We're getting close. Let's see.
It looks like you're up.
All right, there I am. Hey, okay, everybody, we're going to talk about Polio Plus here a little bit. I'm John Bullock from the wonderful Rotary Club of beautiful Colleyville, Texas. Tonight, we're going to talk about a few things. First of all, I always like to review the fight against polio. And the reason I like to do that is that those of us that have been around a while just assume everybody knows about polio. But I always find out when I visit clubs that there's always people that don't know much about polio and don't know much about Rotary's fight against polio. And then once we do that, we're going to talk about some of the areas of focus for the upcoming year. First of all, just the fight against polio. Let me see if I can do this here. There we go. Rotary started Polio Plus in 1985. And since that time, the global eradication of polio has been our #1 international goal. And as my good friend Bill Gates would say, we are this close to finishing the job. So what the heck is polio? Well, I tell you, these days, everybody recognizes that picture. It's a virus, just like the coronavirus. The difference is polio invades your central nervous system, and basically that results in muscle paralysis. So in some people, that means that it attacks maybe their legs or maybe their arms, and that would mean that they might have to be in a wheelchair or can't lift things. In other people, it paralyzes the muscles that you use to breathe. So some of those people end up on a machine called an iron lung. Now in the United States, polio hit its peak in the 40s and 50s. And this picture you're seeing is a hospital ward that is full of these iron lungs. And basically an iron lung breathes for you because your muscles are paralyzed. Now in those days, the peak was about 20,000 new cases each year. And back in the 1940s, I don't have the exact number, but our population was much lower. It's roughly half of what it is today. So basically, polio was like a coronavirus, but we had it every year. And people, communities would shut down swimming pools, they would shut down schools, they would shut down movie theaters because everybody was so afraid of catching polio. A big turning point came in 1955 with a doctor named Dr. Jonas Salk, and he invented the first polio vaccine. And this was like a miracle. It cut U.S. cases from 20,000 a year in the 50s all the way down to only 1,000 a year in the 1960s. And Dr. Salk was a national hero. He was featured on Time magazine. He was very famous because he had done so much to eliminate polio. Another key turning point was in 1961. Another doctor named Albert Sabin invented the oral polio vaccine. And this is one that I remember when I was a child, and I'm sure a lot of y'all do too. I was born in 1953. So when I was in elementary school, we finally had the ability to take these little cubes of sugar. And in those sugar cubes was a polio vaccine. And as I recall, I believe we took those vaccines in school. My wife was from California, and they had a deal where her dad would pack everybody up in the car, all the kids, and they would drive to, maybe it was a drugstore where she can't really remember what, but they would just hand them the vaccine in through the car window and all the kids would take it. But the key to what Dr. Sabin put together was to have mass polio campaigns. And using his method, by 1979, polio was a thing of the past in the United States. And by 1991, the entire Western Hemisphere was free of polio. So Rotary got involved in 1979, and it all started with a grant from Rotary International to the Philippines to administer polio vaccine. And this had really never been done before, to try to vaccinate an entire population of entire country. And when I say that, basically polio is a disease that primarily strikes children. So when you give polio immunizations, you usually give it to children who are 5 years of age or less. So Rotary International gave this grant to the Philippines, and lo and behold, it worked great. And within 6 months, we were giving grants to other countries, 6 additional countries. Finally, in 1985, Rotary started a program called Polio Plus, which is still what it's called today. And the very first thing we did was a $120 million pledge to the World Health Organization to fund a group of experts to really focus on polio. Another big turning point was in 1988. 4 organizations banded together to start the Global Polio Eradication Initiative. This was UNICEF, the Centers for Disease Control, the World Health Organization, and of course, Rotary. And this slide kind of shows you what each organization's focus was. So for Rotary, our job was advocacy, or publicizing it, funding it, and really doing the social mobilization, getting people involved. One of the things that makes a difference with Rotary that almost no other organization could do is when we put together immunization programs in other countries, we're not sending Rotarians from the US to, let's say, India or Pakistan or, wherever. For the most part, Rotary has Rotary clubs in those countries. So it's their own local citizens that are heading up the immunization campaign. And that's really what Rotary has brought to the table. That's what's made it work. So has the program worked at all? Well, back in 1988, all the countries on this map that you're seeing in red, they all had new cases of polio. They call that endemic polio. There's 350,000 new cases a year in 125 countries. Today, there's polio in only 2 countries in the world. Those countries are Pakistan and Afghanistan. We've gone from 350,000 new cases a year to, so far this year, 45 cases. 41 in Pakistan and 4 in Afghanistan. And I tell you what makes this so hard is a lot of these countries, if you think of the Wild West back in the 1800s in the US, these countries are wilder than the Wild West. I mean, there's places there that you can't get to. The other hurdle we face is that in some cases, some of the local leaders are skeptical of polio vaccinations, and they think it's some kind of a Western plot to, like sterilize their populations. So it's been a real struggle in these last two countries, but we are making progress. This is my good friend Bill Gates. If you do the percentages, it's 99.999 something percent that it's decreased. But I tell you what, polio is like the coronavirus. As long as, and it's probably worse than that, as long as a single case exists, we are only one bus ride or one plane ride away from starting the whole thing over again. And some of the experts have estimated that if we don't totally eradicate polio, within 10 years, here we go again. We're up to 200,000 new cases every year. The only other disease that has been fully eradicated is smallpox. And we hope to make polio the next disease that is totally eradicated. Okay, so that's a little bit of history about polio. So what the heck are we going to do about it? 3 areas of focus for the upcoming year: polio education and publicity, fundraising, and awards. In the area of education and publicity, my first and biggest goal is I would like us to give a polio presentation to every club in the district during the upcoming year. And that is a big goal. I found out last year I can't do that by myself. I'm not too bright, but I figured that out. So one of the things I want to put together is a district polio team. I would like to use the area governors to help me with that. But if anybody on this call is interested in becoming a member of that district team and helping us give presentations and helping us coordinate publicity, please email me. I don't have an H in John. It's rotaryjohn@gmail.com. So that's one of the main things I'd like you to remember from this presentation. Now, other things we're going to do this year, we're also going to participate in districts events like this one, the district assembly. We'll make a presentation at PETS, and we'll be involved in the foundation seminar. Another thing that I would like to do new this year is try to expand our presentations on polio outside of Rotary. So I happen to be a member of the Lions Club also. I'm a member of some other clubs, and I would like to see us try to start giving those presentations to non-Rotary groups. Okay, fundraising. First of all, if we look at last year, we had set a goal of $75,000. Excuse me, that comes out to about $25 per Rotarian. And currently we're sitting at about $44,000 with 2 months to go. So we might make it. Hey, miracles happen, but it's going to be tough. So I looked back and said, well, why did we have a tough time meeting our $75,000? One big reason is that in our district, only 32 clubs set a polio fundraising goal. The total that was set in our district was $34,170. And several of the clubs that set a goal set a very low goal. So one of the things we really need to do is encourage all of our clubs to set goals. So if you are on this club, I would talk to my club president and make sure that that president is setting a goal for raising money for polio. And as a minimum, we would like that goal to be $25 per member. Now, I can tell you, my club, Colleyville, the thing we've got is I'm kind of a pain in the neck, and I was after everybody all year. We averaged $139 per member. So I'd like to see another club top that next year. So what are we going to do in 2020 and 2021? Well, we're going to set the same goal of $75,000. Once again, that's about $25 per Rotarian. I'm repeating myself, but we need to encourage every club to set goals. And the district team can help you reach your goal. So how are we going to do that? Okay, last year, we put together an event called the Ride to End Polio. This was a bike ride. we raised $17,124. Well, that wasn't too bad. But that included, out of about 75 clubs, it included 21 clubs, 69 riders, and we did a spinning event for people that wanted to do a stationary bike. And it even included a few non-Rotarians. It was good publicity, and it was a very fun event. We gained a lot just by the camaraderie of the Rotarians. This coming year, World Polio Day is Saturday, October 24th, and I would like to have our bike ride either on that day or on the next day. And for various reasons, last year it was easier to do it on a Sunday. We'll see what happens this year. The neat thing about doing an event like a bike ride is the second bullet there. You can get donations, yes, from the Rotarians in your club, but you can also get sponsorships from non-Rotarians and from businesses. And last year, most people did not do that. Most people just got donations from the Rotarians in their club, which is fine. But this year, we really want to reach out. In my case, I got about $1,200 in donations from family members and businesses and old college buddies and people like that who aren't even in Rotary. So the advantage to having an event is that you can really reach out and bring people that are not in Rotary. If you set a club goal of $25 per member, that doesn't mean necessarily that every member has to give $25. It's just that every member has to raise $25. And surely somebody has a rich brother-in-law. The other thing that I know we need to work on is encouraging participation from some of the large clubs who tend to do their own events. And I know that somehow we need to bring the remote clubs in. If there's anybody on the call from, like, let's say Brownwood or Burke Burnett or something like that, okay, it's hard for you to come to Fort Worth on a Sunday and do a bike ride. So this is something we got to figure out, is how do we get some of those other clubs involved? I also need to just get better coordination, and that's one of the things I mentioned before. I really would like to get about 10 or 12 area coordinators to help me with this. Other things, I know Roger has talked about having another district event, such as Pints for Polio or Rounds for Rotary, or it has to have alliteration. That's the thing. So there's a limited number of things you can do. But the other thing I know we would gladly do is if your club has an event. I know one of the clubs, gosh, I'm drawing a blank. I think it's maybe Flower Mound, but they have a swimming event. You'll let your area governor know and let me know, and maybe there's some way we can help you with your individual club event. Okay, awards. Woo, that was cool. The Rotarian who raises the most money is going to be named the District 5790 Polio Champion. Now, this is a weird year with the coronavirus. I know who that is. There's somebody that raised a ton of money this year, and I have not presented that award yet because everybody's been isolated, but I promise I'm going to. Another award we're going to give is any individual Rotarian who donates $100 is going to get one of these beautiful Polio Plus Society pins. And last but not least, this is tough to do. Clubs with 100% participation that average $25 per member will receive an End Polio Now banner. So if you've got a club with, let's say 20 people, I mean, it's not enough just to get some guy with big pockets to say, well, here's $500, we made it. We need 100%, even if it's $1, I want 100% participation in order to earn that banner. So here are the key takeaways from this wonderful presentation you just had. Number one, please go back to your clubs, get with your club president, and set a goal for Polio Plus. Set it at a minimum of $25 per member. And remember, that doesn't mean that every member has to give $25. It means that every member needs to raise $25. Second, I would like every club to schedule a polio presentation. Preferably, I'd like to do that early in the year from July through October so that we can motivate you to join the polio team and be in the bike ride and raise money early in the year. The third takeaway is please consider becoming part of the 5790 polio team. What that means is you will help arrange and give polio presentations. I'm going to go ahead and put a presentation together and I will send it out to everybody. And what I'm going to ask every person on the team to do is modify that presentation to use your experiences. You might give it exactly like I send it to you, or, you know, when I give presentations in clubs, many times I find that Rotarians have had a family member who had polio or had a friend that had polio. That's the kind of thing you could put in your presentation to make it more personal to you. And finally, when we do our Ride to End Polio, I would ask you to help us coordinate that. So those are our 3 takeaways: set a club goal, schedule a polio presentation, become part of the polio team. This is my contact information. I don't have an H in John, so it's just rotaryjohn@gmail.com. You can probably remember that without writing it down, but you know what? Go ahead and write it down. rotaryjohn@gmail.com. That's my phone number. You call that, my secretary will, no, I'm just kidding. That's my cell phone number, 817-721-6061. And let me pause there for just a second. We have about 4 minutes left. Does anyone have any questions? You don't have to have questions, and you won't hurt my feelings if you don't have any. But if anybody has any burning questions, by golly, now's your chance. Okay, I don't hear any questions.
Well, how are they? Go ahead.
John, I have a question. My name is Samir.
Yeah.
Are you gonna email us this presentation, or do you want us to request one and send you our email address?
Why don't you request one and send me your email address?
Okay. Good.
That would be great.
All right, sounds good. And if we organize a stationary bike ride or a stationary bike event on October 24th, can we invite other people from the district?
Yeah, and see, Samir, that's a great idea. And what we did last year is I had one central location, which happened to be in Colleyville, where a lot of district members came, but there were other people that rode in other locations. John Picorni put together a ride with, I believe, 3 people. So you can put together rides anywhere you want, and the key is invite everybody, even invite non-Rotarians.
Okay.
And what we did last year is each person that participated, you can put this on, you can send out an email, or you can put it on Facebook, whatever. But what I did is I said, hey, I would like you to sponsor me. The way I did it is I kind of gauged it according to how much money I thought people had. But, you know, I'd say, I'd like you to sponsor me for $100. And sure enough, I had some college friends that sent me $100. I've got a brother-in-law that's pretty wealthy, and I hit him up for $500, and son of a gun, he paid it. So that's how you raise money, is just asking people what to do. So the answer to your question is yes, definitely organize your own events, and please send me your email information, because you clearly need to be part of the team.
Sounds great. Thanks.
A question.
Yeah.
Do you know if there are any Rotarians in our district who have had polio or have had it in their family and are willing to share their story?
Thank you, Teresa. And by the way, Teresa did a great job last year, let me just tell you, in raising money. Holy cow.
Thank you.
I know there are, Teresa, and I don't have it written down. Paul, do you remember Will?
Will Griffin
Yeah.
with Pace Setters had polio as a child, and so he might be a good contact. And then David Boyle might be on the line, and he knows some people out in the Abilene area that have had polio. So,
And anybody that has that type of information, please just email me and send it to me. And Teresa, I will share that with everybody. And by the way, Teresa, you're automatically part of the team.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, well,
I had a question.
sure. Hey, Don.
Good to see you. Thanks for doing what you're doing. I'm wondering how much we can dovetail what people are dealing with in this pandemic into appreciating what many of us experienced as children, that a friend had polio. I knew Stephen O'Toole had polio, and I used to play at his house a lot. But a lot of people don't appreciate what we experienced back in those days, and they may be able to relate a little bit of what we're dealing with in the pandemic, at least those on the front lines that are experiencing it full force. So I just wondered if there's some way to blend those two eras together, so help people appreciate what we're trying to wipe out.
That is a great idea, and that's something we need to think about. I love studying history. I've just started rereading a book about the flu pandemic, and there's a lot of things that you can draw together. So yeah, great idea. Well, hey, let me wrap up because I know my time is up. This last picture I'm going to show, in 2015, one of the best things I ever did, I went on what they call a National Immunization Day in India. And we went around and gave polio immunizations, the little drops, to children in local villages under 5 years in age. And this is a picture. It looks like something that came out of a magazine, but I took this picture on my phone. And this is just a group of kids that were hanging around that we gave, not all of them, because some of them are older, but the three in front we gave immunizations to. And the big sign they had was goodbye polio, thanks Rotary. And if we keep it up, we are only a few years from just eliminating it altogether. Okay. I'm trying to stop my share. There we
Great
go.
job. Thank you very much.
Now you get me again. So, hey, thanks everybody. And please, this is a great cause. And if anybody is interested in helping out, even if you're not a bike rider, I realize not everybody rides bikes, but you can give presentations and you can help publicize. And I just need a team of people to help out. So thank you guys very much.
Okay, very good. Excellent job, John. Our next presentation will be regarding the Annual Programs Fund, which includes the APF, Annual Programs Fund. Also some discussion about every Rotarian every year and the Paul Harris Society. So let me get this presentation up and going. Slideshow from the beginning. Okay, hopefully you people can hear me. And we'll get started. Maybe somebody could respond and say you can hear me.
We can hear you, Paul.
Okay,
Paul, we
okay.
can hear you. We can
Okay,
hear you.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing my control things, and so I just wanted to make sure. Okay, well, our sub-chair for the Annual Programs Fund is Janice Kane, and as I mentioned earlier, she is not feeling well this week, but she is a great leader for the Annual Programs Fund, and her telephone number is there, and you can certainly contact her. And we have a site page for her, and so there's a lot of information available, and this is one of our most important funds. And so she starts off her presentation the same way I did my review earlier, so we won't do the mission and the motto again, but that's always a good place to start. Go ahead. Somebody.
Paul, do you have something on your screen? There's no screen.
Oh,
you show
okay.
show
You're
your
not
screen?
screen sharing.
I guess I
He doesn't want to
won't be.
share.
Well, thank you. I do
Not
have
that I
my
don't like looking at everybody, but actually, I
I
thought you
might have
were.
to, let's see, I need to end this presentation so I can get back to screen sharing, I guess. Let me see how this
Well,
is
just
going to work.
just
It's at the
move your
very
cursor
bottom.
down toward the bottom, right underneath where everybody's picture is.
And click that green button.
You should see it just
Uh,
right below the pictures. You should see it says share screen.
On my system, it's not doing that, so that's something kind of weird.
You might have to move your mouse around for it to show up.
Yeah, don't go
I
all
will.
the way to the bottom. Just go right below the last row of pictures.
Well, let's see here. It is not doing it for some reason, but let me,
It should be in the middle of your screen down in the black border on the bottom, right in the middle of the screen on the black border.
John, you're a co-presenter. Where does it show up on your screen? Does it different from ours?
maybe John didn't give me back control or something. I don't know.
I think you have to go in and click that. Sorry. I think you have to go click your share screen.
Yeah.
I don't have that button on my screen now.
Okay,
I
is
had it.
John on? John?
Yeah,
I've got it.
I'm trying to do that now.
Okay.
I've got it on my screen.
I've got it on mine, but the presenters
Okay.
might.
I finally have it back, but I did not have it for a while.
Okay, so
Okay,
you should have it
good.
now because I don't see it here.
Yeah, I'm just getting it back. So now I've got to go
Okay,
find mine.
you're the host.
Okay, I'm the host now. Okay, very good.
You got to show
So-
your screen.
All right, let me do that. Okay, my presentation is going away here.
Hey, Janelle, can you hit your mute button?
Can y'all see anything yet or not?
No.
Still not?
There you go,
Thank you.
Paul.
Okay, good, thank you. Okay, so let me back up a couple of slides. So let me go this way. Okay, so Janice Kane is the annual programs fund chair, and she's not available tonight, but she will be available as soon as she gets well, and she does a great job. So she starts off her presentation as many of us do, with the mission and the motto, which we just covered just a little while ago. And then her presentation starts off with understanding the need. And the question down at the bottom is, when did you first realize the power of Rotary? And I think a lot of us who have been on a number of humanitarian trips with Rotary probably feel like that one of our first trips of that kind is when we first started feeling like this is what it really feels like to be a Rotarian. And I think when you see these pictures here, it makes you think of that as well. And I imagine each of you have your own story as to when you've really, the light comes on and what it really means to be a Rotarian. Our Rotarian, our foundation, and this is kind of interesting in that I've got pictures all over the place of you guys, and I can't see some of my screen here, so that makes it a little bit interesting, but let me see, maybe I can do it this way. So our foundation operates because of both program participation and financial contributions, and so it's really a partnership between folks are able to contribute and folks are able to participate, and some folks who do both, and probably most people do both. So now I will go to the next slide over here on this screen. And so when you look at what the Rotary Foundation is interested in terms of their goals, they still pick Polio Plus as a top priority until the job is done. And we're getting so close that we think that any year now we're going to see the last. And we sure hope so if people continue to immunize and stay after it. A new fund that has come along is the Disaster Response Fund. And it started probably about a year or so ago, but with not a lot of focus. But with the pandemic, it has become a fairly hot item. And it enables you to, each district, to apply for a $25,000 disaster response grant to focus, but there are a lot of terms and conditions and requirements, and it's pretty competitive because this time around, our district, a notice came out from the Rotary Foundation encouraging people to apply for these disaster response grants. And we immediately got a group together and did an analysis, and we felt like that there was a huge opportunity and need to help out the food banks in this area. And so we put in a proposal for a disaster response grant. And when it was reviewed, two things happened. I guess so many other districts were turning in these applications that it sucked up the money pretty fast. But at the same time, we were also told that food banks by themselves did not qualify, and that what they had elected to do with the folks that were managing the disaster response fund felt like that it really needed to address the needs of the hospitals with regard to the personal protective devices and that type of thing, or things to help out the hospital situation. So we did not make that, but it's still a very worthwhile fund, and if sometime in the future we may want to put forth another application. One of the things too is they used up the money that they had available for that first round very quickly, and they're now working to get more people to contribute to disaster response. The Rotary Foundation is also encourages global grant projects, district grant projects, and they also want us to continue to build the annual program fund through the Every Rotarian Every Year program, and continue to build the endowment. So that's the goals for the Rotary Foundation. And so our district, our incoming governor has goals, and we've talked to some, and I may not have all of his thoughts here, but just some of the things that I know he's interested in is a disaster response project, but not necessarily one that is using the disaster response fund, but one with there are other ways of doing it. And the other things that we can be doing is using district grant money to address a lot of the needs that are caused by the pandemic. And we can use global grants for that purpose. And the Rotary Foundation has changed their rules a little bit in that they're relaxing or reducing the restrictions on a reverse global grant. And so there were a lot of details about that, but one of the very exciting things that's going on in our district right now is that, and I might want to get someone else on our committee, on our disaster response committee, to talk about that. Some of the folks that are online.
Paul, can I talk about that?
Absolutely. Sharon
Actually,
Miles
if
is
you'll go
very
back,
involved. Yeah.
if you'll go back one slide, I want to talk about two things on that slide. If you don't, I'll do it
Okay.
quickly because I don't want to
Okay.
take your time. I do want to talk about disaster response. They did have $1 million dedicated to that. That's gone. So we're having a huge telethon on Saturday. I have sent blast out about that. Jennifer Jones is kind of heading that up at Rotary National, but it's going to be people all over the world. There'll be entertainment on there. They've already started collecting money for disaster response. Peter's already dedicated some of our DDF to that. But they're asking districts to do stuff. They're asking clubs to donate. So it's a huge telethon. And I hope y'all will be on, it's going to be on Facebook Live, and you should be getting information about it almost daily at this point. If not, I'll send you some stuff. So that's how they're trying to make up. They're trying to raise about $3 million because they just had such a quick, they went through the other so fast. There's just so many people that need help. On the Global Grant Project, Peter started that, or actually John Picorni planted an acorn and grew an oak, and Peter, as our oak, came in and said, I really want to help the food banks, and we decided to not help just the food banks in Tarrant County, but the food banks in Abilene and Wichita Falls. And so we've contacted those three. We did a needs assessment and assessed what % of them, how many people they served in their area, also how many coronavirus cases they had and how many deaths they had and where the need was. And each one sent us their community assessment. They told us what they needed. And that's when we did our first disaster response grant and found out we couldn't use it for food banks. So we are not to be deterred. So Scott and Paul and Rod, our team, Peter and all of us came together and said, okay, we're going to try. We found out we could do it for PPE, protective equipment for the hospitals or ventilators, as long as the equipment or PPE stuff. And then 50% of that money, even if whatever the grant's for, 50% of it can be used for food banks. So we finally figured out we could do 50% food banks and 50% for the hospitals. So we're really trying to raise quite a bit of money to meet the needs. And we did the same thing with the hospitals. We talked to the regional hospitals that have the most beds in those areas that had the capability of serving the most number of people. So we did Hedrick Hospital in Abilene, United Regional in Wichita Falls, and the Texas Health Resources in the Metroplex. And we did a survey of all the counties they serve and matched that to our clubs that are in those counties. So almost all of our clubs and communities are being touched by this grants once we award those. So we're in the process now. Scott's hasn't finished, but really what we need is for you to give, and especially West Texas. We need y'all to step up and help us out a little bit. We've had Peter made a significant contribution, asked us to designate $25,000 of our DDF, which is immediately matched by another $25,000 from Rotary. So we're already at $50,000. And then we've had some money from Australia. Thank you, Don, for that, helping us get that done with Ian. And they noted $1,000. That's another $1,000. So that puts us at $52,000. And now we have clubs contributing and individuals contributing. And every time a person contributes, that's matched 50 cents on the dollar. And so we're getting close to about $70,000 tonight. We're really wanting to get to 100 because the more we have, the more we can spread around. It's a pretty big area we're trying to serve, and the equipment they're wanting us to purchase is pretty expensive. But we're going to do the best we can do. But we really appreciate Arlington, $5,000, Iowa Park, $1,000. We have several that have already contributed. So I want to tell you we appreciate that, but we're going to run this. It started Monday through next Monday. So please work with your clubs and encourage them and individuals, and not just Rotarians. If you have friends that are interested in helping us out, that would be great. Questions? I'm through.
Okay, well, that's awesome work by the team, particularly Sharon with all the needs analysis work, and Scott and Peter and everybody involved has really done a great job in working that through. And that's a lot of money, but a very effective job of bringing it together. So let me continue on, and if no one else has any immediate questions on that. I guess with regard to Roger, we talked a little bit about these different things here earlier. We encourage club goals of Well, in terms of Roger's focus, he would encourage the clubs to raise $100 per member in annual giving. That's pretty standard for our district, and 100% participation in every Rotarian every year. So that means that you average $100 per member, but everybody has to give at least 25 for your club to qualify for that. He would like to see growth of Paul Harris Fellows and Paul Harris Societies and benefactors and bequest members, major donors, and 100% EREY clubs, and polio contributions from every club. Roger, you can tell me if I missed anything in that list there, but I'm sure there are other things, but the page just wasn't big enough.
No, I think, Paul, I think we're good. I think that gives a area there. So one thing the AGs will be getting on a monthly basis is kind of a goal list to go over with their clubs to keep this in their club or keep this in the club's mind or in their meetings. So just expect for all your clubs to be given some monthly reminders of things that we need to be looking at, like every Rotarian every year, or you know, all the different givings that we have. We're Rotarians, and it's in a lot of cases pretty sad that we have a lot of members in our district that just come to clubs and they don't really participate. So we're working to help change that if we can and make it an ongoing, recurring event year after year.
Well, I'm very encouraged by all the attendance tonight and the folks that are interested. I think with that kind of interest, I think we'll have a good year ahead. So we talked earlier, I think, about the foundation funds, the programs fund, the endowment, Polio Plus, and the disaster response fund. We talked about, and so these are in Janice's regular presentation. It talked about, again, the rating by the Charity Navigator. So we've hit on some of those subjects already. The annual fund share system is something I guess we haven't talked about yet this evening, but when you give money to the Rotary Foundation share designation, 50% goes to the district designated funds, DDF. And so would anybody like more of a definition of what a district designated fund is? Essentially, what it is when you make a contribution to the annual programs fund, there is a fund that's set aside called for district designated funds, and that's called the share fund, and that's what holds 50% of the contributions that you make to the annual programs fund, and that money comes back to you later to be matched with projects that you do 3 years down the road. The other 50% goes to the World Fund, and those funds, the World Fund uses for various purposes, and a lot of it is to come back and match other contributions you're making to things like global grants and Peace Fellows and various other funds that are that the foundation is involved in. So the way this looks on a graph here would be Rotarian contributions can go to polio, which would go straight to the project funding. If I come down here, disaster response would go straight to project funding. The permanent fund, the investment earnings off of it would help feed in, depending on how the person contributing or setting up an endowment specified, a lot of those investment earnings would come to maybe help out with DDF and share or other designations that the person making the contribution might want, but it's the earnings off of that investment where the basic capital remains intact and continues to grow. Now, with regard to annual funds, 50% of it goes to share, and the DDF, well, part of it goes to the World Fund and part of it goes to DDF. So That's 50% goes to the district designated fund, 50% goes to the World Fund, and that's what is used to do matching 3 years down the road. So that is a graph that is useful to be aware of as you make a contribution. This is the multiple donor form, and it's just to remind you that it makes a difference where you make your contribution. So if you make it to annual fund share, then that money will come back in the form of DDF or district designated funds that can be used to match grants that are done in 3 years forward. If you clicked something else, like if you click responding to disasters, then that would not create any DDF or district designated funds to be used later on for matching. So those are just some things to be aware of. Here's some other options. You could make your contribution to an endowment fund in Rotary and designated for Rotary Peace Centers, or direct to the World Fund, or to share for the endowment, which also the endowment, again, those funds would go to the endowment fund and only the earnings off of it would go to share. So that is just something to be aware of as you make contributions to the Rotary Foundation using these forms. So I won't belabor that too much unless there's some questions. This is just a couple of charts that I was doing some pretty weird stuff there. Anyway, so the last full year that we had, the average contribution to the annual program fund per capita by Rotarians in our district was $122.74. So that was a very good year, in that the Rotarians on average were exceeding the $100 thing that we wanted our district to do. And in fact, if we look at the list over the last several years, we have been up in that range for about 5 years now, where we've exceeded $100 per member in the district. And yet we have a lot of, it's kind of strange in that we have a lot of folks who don't give very much, and there's a lot of clubs who don't set goals and don't give very much. So we sure do appreciate the folks that do support the activities of the foundation. This is a report, and there's some really helpful reports that you might be interested in for your club, and they're available on myrotary.org. And you can go in and look at the giving reports and see a very good analysis of how your club is doing in these various categories. The concern that I have from a district level is that our average per capita has taken a bit of a dive this year. And part of that's, I'm sure, the pandemic. But another part of it is that for some reason this year, not very many clubs actually set goals. And so that's something that as people, as Rotarians who are interested in the foundation, that's something that you could help your club with, is making sure that they just sit down and put a goal in the system and then work toward it. So hopefully, the latter part of the year, a lot of clubs do make their big contributions to the foundation late in the year. So hopefully that will happen this year. But again, with the disruption of the pandemic, it's not it's not a sure thing this year. So again, this is just a closer look at various things, but that's just again a portion of the report to give you a little bit of the highlight. Right now we're at $81.67 per capita, and you can see in prior years, of course these were probably year-end figures here, and so they were so we've got another 2 months, I guess, to try to bring that up to get up over 100. So supporting our foundation, this section deals with help presidents possess tools to develop club member support for the Rotary Foundation. So when I looked at this, it's just kind of a checklist of clubs. Presidents should appoint a foundation chair and a committee. So not all of our, I guess in a lot of our clubs, probably half of them have foundation chairs and committees, and there are probably a lot of clubs that don't have. And some have just a really great time. They meet, regularly on a monthly basis. Go out and have coffee, and I guess when we get to go out and have coffee again, but they enjoy planning projects and making plans, and it's really a fun time. It's a good idea to review your club's giving history and find out if they need to, tighten up a little bit. Every club has to take care of its own ownership of its own foundation goals and annual giving to polio and the permanent fund, et cetera. So the big question mark is, has your club set its goals? And some of you on the line tonight may go back and just kind of look and see if your club did set goals this year. You'd enter in Rotary Club Central. Again, this checklist just says make sure you communicate your goals in your meeting, and every Rotarian must be asked to participate in the foundation. So you're a lot more successful if you do an ask than if you just wait. And incorporate the every EREY, every Rotarian every year message in all of your Rotary contacts, and recognize your members. And that's really important, to recognize people for giving, and that makes them, kind of helps reinforce the importance and the appreciation that we have for doing these projects and making a difference. Have a foundation moment at your meetings, share stories and videos, and tell how contributions make a difference. Talk about your local project successes. It's interesting that we probably do far more locally than we do internationally, and yet people don't always realize that, and that's really important. But also international stories and videos are very key. Again, just some more tips to achieve your goals. Get 10 members enrolled in Rotary Direct, add a benefactor, add a Paul Harris Society member, and lead by examples. Give to encourage others. This area, I probably won't go into a lot of detail. I think you're probably familiar with most of this, but there are recognition levels for and banners for every Rotarian every year, and whether you're a sustaining club, Paul Harris Fellow, there are all these things, and it certainly, some people, I guess, feel like, well, I don't need to be recognized, but in a way, it can be a very good example that you're setting for others to be recognized, in that they now see that, hey, that's somebody cared enough to make that kind of investment in the Rotary Foundation, and I think, they might be encouraged to do the same thing. Supporting the foundation is a great way to give back to Rotary for the positive impact that it's had on your personal and professional life, and think about what your EREY story is and share it with others. So sharing, celebrating achievement, and doing good in the world. Those are some nice photographs there. So the next section here, if there are no questions at this point with regard to the annual programs fund, we'll talk a little bit about the Paul Harris Society. And that's Jeannie Secord is our Paul Harris Society chair, and she's not here this evening, but we'll, because of an illness, and so we'll talk a little bit about that. And basically, the definition of that is donors who elect to give $1,000 every year to either the annual programs fund, the Polio Plus Fund, or approved foundation grants, or a combination of those things. And so that is basically part of the definition, and so it helps ensure the continued, doing so helps ensure the continued good work of Rotary members. So there it goes. So it's interesting that 7% of Rotarians give $1,000 or more to the annual programs fund, and that group of donors, 7% of Rotarians, actually represent 45% of all annual fund giving. So it really, you're really playing a very important part if you are a Paul Harris Society member and you're giving $1,000 a year and setting an example for others as well. So to become a member, it's as simple as filling out a brochure. But if you don't have a brochure, you can join online at rotary.org/Paul Harris Society. You can call the Rotary Support Center at 1-866-9-ROTARY, and that would, you could do it that way. So I would encourage you, if you've been thinking about it, to do that, and that would be wonderful. Rotary Direct is another good way of having folks give. That way it's less easy to forget to give your regular contributions, and you can set it up monthly, quarterly, or annually. And you can enroll online at rotary.org/give, G-I-V-E. The Paul Harris Society recognition is these wings here, and they can be worn with other pins like your major donor pin or whatever, and you receive a certificate, and again, it's just a good testament to your conviction and commitment to Rotary. So another thing you can do is create a Paul Harris Society, and if there's anybody on the line that has that's in a Paul Harris Society, let me know. I'd be interested in that. But you get support from your district leadership team to do that. You organize a team of Paul Harris Society promoters, and you schedule charter events and make a personal ask. To maintain a Paul Harris Society, be sure to say thank you, have timely recognition, and continue promotion at club and district events, and have annual reminders of that. So thank you very much for your time and commitment and support. And are there any questions about the Annual Programs Fund or the Paul Harris Society? Oh, this young lady right here is raising her hand. Oh, okay.
John, I have one. My name is Samir, and Arlington Sunrise.
Yes.
Rotary. And we've been the highest giving clubs for quite some time. And I've been chairing the foundation for a while also. One thing is every time you put the ERE on a statement, and also on whether it be a polio plus on your month or quarterly or however each sends their statement to the members, they end up paying it most of the time. And instead of asking for it separate, just becomes a line item on the statement. We're a 92.4% club that gives to an EREY club. We are not 100% only because we have 6 others that don't get statements. That would be a suggestion that I can give to the director.
Yeah, I think probably a lot of clubs do something similar. If I heard you correctly, I think the sound was breaking up, but the club I'm in, they have a bill, or on the quarterly statement, we get quarterly statements. They have $25 a quarter or whatever there for people to give, and I guess I think maybe a lot of clubs do that, but maybe there are others as well. But thank you for that input.
Yeah, just a thought.
Are there anyone else that has a question at this point? Well, if that is, if there are no further questions, then I guess one thing that's kind of interesting is that some people qualify but have not filled out the paperwork. And so it would be kind of interesting is to folks who are regularly giving $1,000 a year but have not filled out the little card or let the support center know or whatever. And it's really kind of a good example if they do become an official Paul Harris Society member. I would encourage people to do that, because then other people are sometimes influenced that, hey, that looks like kind of a nice thing to do. So just a thought.
I have one more question though. Have you ever
Yes.
had a Paul Society member get together for the district?
A get together? You mean a meeting or of just Paul Harris Society folks?
Some kind of social for the district where the entire Paul Harris Society members can come in, or just
Yeah.
meet
Yes,
up?
sometimes one of the things that we do is that a lot of times, like if we have a gala, we sometimes have a reception, and we include the Paul Harris Society contributors along with the major donors and so forth. And so we have that kind of a meeting. And Peter Scott, you were shaking your head that you had maybe had some input on that as well.
Well, I just wanted to say yes. I mean, we had the gala. We did invite all of the Paul Harris Society members along with major contributors and so on and so forth. So, you know, it's a way to recognize and thank them and encourage them to, I guess, increase their support and talk to others about supporting as well.
Exactly. Well, great. Well, thank you very much, folks. And I think it's such an effective way of raising money is to have a group of folks that can and will contribute $1,000 a year. But
Oh, could I mention one other thing?
Sure.
Before I go on mute, which you know, everybody normally likes me to do, but you may have already mentioned this, but you know, when you were talking about the disaster relief and the reverse grant that we're putting together, it's my understanding that funds that clubs and individuals contribute to this will count towards their goal for their club and also for the district. Is that true?
That is my understanding, and with regard to the disaster response fund, it seems like there's a lot of breaking news that is kind of coming out. So there's a little bit of new news that comes out with that occasionally, but that's what my understanding is. What you just said. The thing that it doesn't do is it doesn't create district designated funds.
Right.
So if you gave a lot of money to the disaster response fund, you know, might help make your recognition objectives. But as far as creating district designated funds that would help your club 3 years out, then it would not do that.
In regards to the reverse global grant that we're creating, what impact would that have on goals?
Yeah, if people make a pledge to that and make their contribution, That is a global grant, and what occurs there is with these global grants, if you want Paul Harris credit or Rotary Foundation credits, recognition credits, then you pay a 5% a fee for that purpose. And so for the purpose of Rotary keeping up with all that bookkeeping, like for instance, with the grant we're looking at, where we could have, 100 or so contributors to that. And so when that money comes in, somebody's got to keep up with, how to get the Paul Harris credits recorded and all that kind of stuff with those people. And so Rotary says, well, if you want Paul Harris credit for it, then just add 5%, and we'll allow you to get Paul Harris credit for it. So
yeah, it's my understanding the Rotary Club of Arlington, which contributed $5,000, increased it to $5,250, so that 5% would be satisfied.
For that, yeah, that would be satisfied for that particular contribution. But if
Right.
if I added my contribution to it, then it would I'd have to pay the 5% if I wanted the Paul Harris Society points for it.
Right. Thank you.
I keep seeing this girl's hand up here, and she's not saying anything. Okay, well, if there are no further questions with regard to this, I think that's. I don't think I have any more. Or do I have any more slides here? I think I'm done with my slides on that, and so now I believe it is Sally Hopper's turn with the endowment. Is that Sally? Are you there? I see you there. We need to unmute you.
All right, I will see. Okay.
And then I'll do a stop share, and you'll do a start share.
Okay. Well, I see a whole lot of new faces when you do that. All right, let me get mine going, and I know it's getting late, and I will go through it and hopefully explain this in a way that will make a lot of sense to you, but not take too long either. All right, let's see here. All right, my job and Don Mavis's job is to talk to you about the endowment part of the foundation. And it's been my experience, and I've been the foundation chair for my Rotary Club, the Arlington Downtown Club, for a number of years. Honestly, I've kind of lost track. I think it's about 5 now. But no matter how much I talk about it, no matter how much I say, it's still a well-kept mystery to most people in the club. And it may be to many of you as well, because this may be your first time to be the endowment chair or in a position to need to know what this is all about. So hopefully we can make some sense to you and kind of demystify it and make it something that you can use in your club. Now, the foundation is a very large entity. The foundation has so many parts to it. It has the 3 funds we talked about, the annual fund, the polio fund, and the disaster relief fund. And then it has numerous other smaller parts like global scholars and global grants and DDF and Peace Scholars and on. But the endowment is one very large part of it in one of those funds, but it's probably the biggest part of the Rotary Foundation, in that it just has a tremendous amount of money in it, well over $2 billion at this point, if I understand it. And if you've never worked with an endowment, by definition, the contributions that people put into an endowment, once donated, are never ever removed from that endowment unless the corporation itself closes. And usually in the bylaws for the endowment, it says where the money will go to a charitable source at that time. And these are not, the endowment donations are not what we in our club would call your birthday donations. They're not even Paul Harris Fellows at $1,000. These are much larger donations, 10,000, 25, maybe even more than that go into the foundation endowment fund. And so it builds quite nicely, you'll see in a minute. The contributions in our foundation are all professionally invested. And as you heard Paul say, we have a 4-star rating from Charity Navigator, which is not an easy thing to get. If you or someone in your club wants to make a monetary donation to the foundation and to the endowment, you will know that your money is going to be looked after very securely, and it will go to the right place and the right time, and you don't have to worry about it at all. Now, with an endowment, when the money is put in, then it is invested, and it's the interest that comes up off of this donation every year from the corpus of the endowment that is spent. So it's the earnings of the endowment that are spent each year. And as you put in your part for this, say you plant a seed, so to speak, to put your things into the foundation, then it grows and it grows and it grows, and it becomes that mighty oak that we heard about, only in this case it's an apple tree. And as it makes its growth, the growth bears fruit, and that fruit comes in the means of the interest off of the corpus of it, that makes a surprising impact in our ability to do good in the world. And in fact, it allows us to retain our strength in perpetuity. For example, back in 2011, the endowment was big enough that it actually earned $5.7 million that we could spend to do good in the world. By 2020, the corpus of that endowment had grown to the point that we now can spend $15.5 million in the world to do good. So it's an amazing way for us to be able to do wonderful projects all over the place. If you want to give to the endowment, or if someone in your club does, it can actually be custom fit to whatever you want to do within those 6 entities that the Rotary gives to, such as promoting peace, fighting disease, clean water, maternal and child health, literacy, and growing local economies. The picture over here is something that our club, Scott Hendricks and many of the other clubs in our district, as well as the endowment and the foundation, have put money into, where we've help the people in Honduras to have fresh water, to learn to have clean water. And their dysentery rates, their rates of babies dying because of dysentery, are so far down. It's been a fabulous, fabulous project. And there's so many other projects that the Rotary Endowment allows to happen all over the world. You can specify what you want your project to be, or you can have it put into the general fund, because whoever saw a pandemic coming? So if you had put a gift in for the general fund, then you could help with the pandemic. Or if you have something that's really important to you, you can put it into one of those 6 other areas. For a gift for a minimum of $25,000, the gift can be named after you. Often people give it themselves and their spouse, can be named after you, and have it spent either in the general fund or in something that you particularly are interested in. And even in the first year, it will render approximately $1,000 that can be spent by Rotarian programs all over the world. And the good thing about this, if you were to give $1,000 to any other charity anywhere, or $25,000, it'd be gone the next year. They would have spent it on something. But in doing this, your $25,000 remains within the endowment, and next year another $1,000 comes up from that and could go back into Rotary programs. So it's something that's tremendously beneficial to our world and to help you and your family set a legacy. Dawn's going to talk to you about planning a gift, or if someone in your club wants to do this, to plan a gift to the Rotary Endowment and show how you can start life-changing programs to help forever. It just won't go away. It makes an impact now, and it makes an impact forever. Dawn's going to tell you some more about how to do this. And when you get home, if you want to go to rotary.org/legacy, there is more information there that will help you learn about how to set up an endowment or set up within our endowment. And certainly anytime you want to call Dawn or me, we will do anything we can to help you to learn more about this. So with that, I turn my part over to Dawn Mavis.
You're breaking up really bad, Don.
Hey, John Picorni, can you, is there a telephone number that Don could call in on?
Say that again.
Is there a telephone number that Don could call in on instead of coming through the system here? Could he call in on the telephone number? I guess the other option is if we can't get Don in, Sally, you might be able to talk to his slides. Would you, if we can get him on through a telephone or something, that'd be great. But if not, Sally, you probably could talk to his slides, I would think.
Well, I was afraid you might think of that. We'll see what I can do.
Let's see, and do you have a copy of his slides, or should I bring up my copy of his slides?
In that his don't seem to be coming.
Let's see, I've got his slides in here somewhere. So I just, can you all see my copy of his slides?
I can't.
You can't, okay, I guess maybe you need somebody, let's see, I'll do a share screen,
Right.
Okay. And I'm gonna share number 2. So I have, okay, I have his slides up right now. And now if Don either could call in on the phone or Sally could talk to the slides, I guess we could continue.
Okay. Don is going to know a great deal more about these than I am. Shall we give him a second to call in on the phone?
Yeah, we could do
Well,
that.
I don't know, unless Don can find the number, I don't have access to.
The other option is maybe Don could call your number, Sally, and talk. Could he talk? Do you have a speakerphone there? I might have a speakerphone here.
And Roger just put
someone just posted a number to the site, to the chat.
in the chat. It's Don, it's 312.
You are in the meeting now. There are more than 50 participants in the meeting. This meeting is being recorded.
This is Don. Can you hear me?
Hey, Don, I can hear you, and there's still some kind of noise somewhere, but say something else, Don.
Okay, well, doing the best I can out here. I'm on the telephone now. Is this any better?
Oh, yeah. a lot better, yeah.
Okay, basically, we're running out of time here, and I've used up time with this. Basically, if you'll call, if you can advance that to slide 7.
So we probably need to mute Don's deal on this, but let him talk just over the telephone.
Yeah, Don asked you to move it to slide 7.
Correct. How's that?
Tell me when I'm in. I can hear you now.
Okay. Okay, Sally just mentioned, well, let's see, that's actually, I think, slide 6, but that's okay. That's the charity navigator, and then the foundation expenditures. 90% go into program operations. Go ahead with the next slide. Basically, what I want to get to is you can see the endowment fund goal for this year is $70 million. You can see that. Next slide, please. Nick, can you hear me? Yeah, there you go. This is one I wanted to get to. In 2016, we launched the Building Rotary Foundation's Endowment $2.025 billion by the year 2025 initiative. And the core objectives on that initiative is to raise new cash gifts, secure new estate commitments, and preserve existing commitments. And the main goal of this effort is to encourage and facilitate the ability of Rotarians to create a lasting legacy. And that's what this is about. And with a contribution to the Rotary's endowment fund. A larger endowment will provide additional financial resources for the next generation of Rotarians to do good work. Now the next slide. And Sally mentioned a little bit ago about how the gift can grow. And here is what she was talking about. You started in 1996 with a gift of $25,000. And in 2016, that went up to over $30,000, just the principal. But the spendable income in that period of time was $29,366. Huge. And the principal of $30,000 is still there. So that's how the endowment works. And you leave your legacy because you put the $25,000 in, and that can be through various means. And so let's go to the next slide and we'll talk about that for a second. You can leave money in your will to the foundation, or you can develop a trust. And there's all kinds of trusts that you can use. But the first thing we always recommend is check with your legal and accounting advisors. And then here are some options you can consider. There can be a lot of different kinds of trusts. Some of you have control over the investments, and some you have control over the income and how long they last. There's all kinds of variables on trust. Charitable remainder trust, unit trust, and so on and so forth. So that's why you need to talk to your financial advisor and your attorneys. Be sure you got it just exactly the way you want. And then the next way you could do it as a retirement plan beneficiary. So when you retire, you have a plan, 401k or something like that, and part of that could go to the endowment fund of the foundation. That's a possibility. And that's how you can get $25,000 in there. Or you could have a life insurance beneficiary. That's pretty simple. You just change your beneficiary over to the Rotary Foundation. There's some rules about that, which we can talk to you about specifically, but the point is it's easy to do. And then annuities. Now this is kind of an interesting one because my wife and I did this one. We sold our business a few years ago and we had a bit of a tax issue, so we made a contribution to the endowment fund of the foundation in the form of an annuity, which the foundation was. So we got a tax deduction, and then because it's an annuity, both of us, or the two of us, received an income for the rest of our lives off of that. And even if one of us deceases before the other, the remainder still gets the income. And then when the last of the two of us pass away, then that income still coming in, like I just showed you on that previous slide, how the income keeps coming in forever. You can designate how you want that to go, which Sally mentioned a while ago. So in our case, we decided we wanted it to go to share, which Paul, you talked about earlier. Share is where essentially half of it comes back to the district and the other half goes to the World Fund. So what we have now is established our legacy. because we're giving money even after we're gone. There's money coming back to our district designated funds from the Don and Carolyn Mavis Endowment Fund. Isn't that cool? Isn't that a great way to have a legacy? And but in the meantime, we're getting an income off of it. So it's a heck of a deal if you're interested in that kind of thing or if you need it. And then, of course, you could always contribute cash or even stock and bonds and those types of things. So there's lots of ways that the endowment fund can be funded besides just writing out a check. And so that's what I wanted to get you to know. And even in our case, in my wife's and my case, we developed that by, over the years, we contributed to the endowment fund. And finally, we got to a point where we could make a sizable, fairly sizable, not huge, but enough that it would make a difference. And so it adds up. It's cumulative is what I'm saying. So there are some things you can do to create your own legacy, yet make sure that the foundation has that money to continue with doing good in the world from now on. So the next slide shows, there you are, thank you. And I want to leave this up for a minute while I'm talking about it. This is the, we don't really have time to go into all the details tonight. In fact, we're already over time, so I'm sorry about that. But here are some resources that you can have. And of course, rotary.org/legacy. You can look on that, and there is like a brochure that gives you some information on specifics on how you can give and just kind of an overview of it. But if you need a little more information, you can actually call the Rotary Support Center. Although I think right now, because of the coronavirus pandemic, probably be better to go ahead and send an email to Rotary Support Center at rotary.org. And then, of course, you can always call Sally or email her, and here is her email address right there. Or you can email to me at that address. But I did want you to know that Rotary has a person here in our area that is responsible to work on behalf of Rotary. She's a Rotary employee, Shelley Hill. She actually lives in Keller in our district, but she actually works with several districts in North Texas. But anyway, she is a professional fund developer, and also she knows a lot of the ins and outs. So we work with her very closely on when people get to the point where they're ready to make some sort of decision on what it is they wish to do and how to go forward and all the technical details you need to know, which we don't have time to get into tonight. So I just wanted to give you a brief overview, and I hope you've had a chance to take notes on this particular slide. I'm sure we can make that information available to you later on, but here it is quick. It's pretty easy to get in touch with just about any of us. And the next slide is just telling you, next slide is just telling you thank you for all of your interest in the contributions, time, talent, and treasure to support our Rotary Foundation. And back to you, Paul. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Great job. And many thanks to all of you folks for joining us tonight. I think that probably most of you are representing your club. And one of the things we noticed is that when we seek to find the foundation chair for clubs, a lot of them are not registered on our district website, and it would be very nice if we had a good listing of who is responsible for the foundation in each of our clubs. And so if you want to send an email to me, or that would be great, and I can pass that information along. Or if you can just with your club and your president, you might just ask them to make sure that you're listed or registered in the system as the foundation chair for your club or foundation representative. Are there any questions that anybody would like to ask before we totally shut down? Or any other things? And I'd like to invite Roger Pascal to be help out with the questions and answers or make any additional comments that he'd like to make.
Real quick, Paul, just to be sure, if the foundation chair is already designated, in my Rotary, is there any need to send that information to you?
If they're already designated, now you got them designated in my Rotary as opposed to in the Rotary, the district Rotary site. Is that correct?
Yeah. We have a foundation chair that we've already put in. So if it's there,
Okay.
you don't need anything from us.
I think that would be fine. Sharon, if you're still on the line, you might comment on where they should be registered. I don't know if Sharon is still on the line here.
Well, I can tell you if it's in Club Runner and your club is synced with Rotary International, it's in Rotary International also.
Yeah,
Okay,
Joyce
thank you.
Stanton has been working all year to try to get that fleshed out, and she's made some progress, but there are some clubs that are still having some trouble.
So it is helpful if we can, when we need to get in touch with the regarding financial or regarding foundation matters, it would be very helpful if we had a good list of who to contact. So I guess we can work on that some more, but if you have some ideas on that, we'll sure work on them. Well, and John Picorni, I'd like to thank you. And John, did you say that you probably have the system generates a list of all the folks who are registered or who signed on this evening? Is that correct?
Well, what we have is a list of people that put their name in the chat box, name in the club. That'll make it, whoever's keeping track of attendance. And I'm not sure whether or not it's required for this meeting because it's not grant training per se. But anyways, I will send that to you, Paul.
Did we get a count of how many folks were signed on this evening?
Well, it's down to 50 now. As high as 65 for a while.
We had 66 for most of the meeting.
66, all right. Super.
You had 66.
Super. Well, I think it's really great to see all you folks, and want to thank you for participating. And our foundation organization within the district is here to support you as in any way we can. And if there are no further questions,
Paul, I have one comment. Can we get everybody to put their presentations in the appropriate section of the site pages? So that, because there's some great presentations today that could be shared with clubs. I mean, I wouldn't want to share a 2-hour presentation for this whole thing, but broken up would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, we have all of those, all of the presentations for the grant. Those have all been uploaded to the various site pages, and we. In some cases, we have those for the funds section as well, and that is one of our objectives, is to get all those uploaded. So that should be done in the next probably couple of weeks. Any other comments or questions that we can do? I'd like to give a shout out to my buddy David Boyle, if he's still on the line. I enjoyed exchanging notes with you today, and glad you got down off the ladder safely. I think he may have already signed off.
Yeah, I was trying to get my mute off there. Appreciate it. Enjoyed your phone call, and I'll get back with you.
Okay, look forward to it.
Paul, I have another comment also, if I may.
Yeah, sure.
My wife and I just gave a very sizable gift to the foundation, and we were also able to pick our regions where we want the foundation money to go. So that's something I wanted to kind of say, that you're able to pick your regions. Like, we wanted 50% of it to come to District 5790 and the other to India, and a region in India. And that worked out very well.
Now, that's awesome. That's very helpful input.
Yeah.
Any other hints or tips that anybody would like to add?
Paul, I want to thank you and John and everybody that put this together. This is great information. I'm always very encouraged whenever I hear and rehear some of this stuff. But, there's so much in Rotary that it would take a year to go over everything that Rotary has to offer. So take note and we'll make this thing happen.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And if there are no further questions, but I guess I'll stay around for a few more minutes if anybody would like to talk about anything else. But I suppose at this point, we can declare the meeting closed. I want to again thank all of the presenters and for being here and for doing a great job.
Thanks, Paul.
Good evening.